She only wanted one warm night before the cold claimed her life. He only wanted to be left alone forever. But when a lonely mountain cowboy discovered a widow sleeping inside a broken cabin, one quiet act of kindness changed two broken lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. Stay until the end, because the final decision he makes will prove that a loving heart is the greatest home anyone can ever find. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartwarming Wild West stories filled with faith, hope, and second chances, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join our growing family for more unforgettable frontier tales. For nearly 8 years, the people living in the valleys below whispered stories about Ethan Walker. They called him the Mountain Cowboy, the lonely man who lived beyond the cedar forests, where snow covered the trails for half the year. Few knew the truth. Ethan had once laughed easily beside his wife and little daughter on a thriving mountain ranch. But sickness had stolen them both during one bitter winter. Since then, he had buried his heart alongside theirs and chosen a life of silence. His weathered log cabin overlooked endless pine forests and towering peaks, where only his horses, faithful sheepdog Ranger, and the whispering wind kept him company. Every sunrise brought another day of hard work chopping wood, repairing fences, and tending cattle, yet every sunset reminded him how empty home could feel. One icy afternoon, dark clouds rolled over the mountains earlier than expected. Ethan noticed fresh footprints crossing an abandoned trail that no traveler had used in years. The prints were small and uneven, as though someone had stumbled through deep snow while barely able to stand. Ranger barked anxiously and pulled toward an old hunting cabin hidden among frozen pines. Ethan hesitated before pushing open the broken wooden door. Inside, the wind slipped through cracked walls, carrying snowflakes across the floor. Curled beside a cold stone fireplace lay a young woman wrapped in a torn blanket. Her worn frontier dress was patched countless times, and her boots had nearly fallen apart. Her face was pale with exhaustion, her hands trembling even in sleep. Beside her rested a tiny cloth bag containing nothing but a Bible, 2 faded photographs, and a loaf of stale bread. Ethan quietly knelt beside her. When she suddenly opened her frightened eyes, she grabbed a broken piece of wood as if preparing to defend herself. "I'm leaving," she whispered weakly. "Please, don't send for the sheriff." Ethan slowly removed his hat. "This mountain's cold enough," he replied softly. "It doesn't need more cruelty." She stared at him, unable to understand why a stranger showed concern instead of suspicion. "My name is Clara," she finally whispered. He simply nodded. "I'm Ethan." After learning she had eaten almost nothing for 3 days, Ethan offered her a small piece of dried venison and warm coffee from the flask hanging at his saddle. She tried refusing. "I can't repay you. I'm not asking you to." The words surprised even Ethan himself. Outside, snow began falling harder. The narrow trail would disappear before nightfall. "You won't survive here tonight," Ethan said. Clara lowered her eyes. "I've already survived worse." Those quiet words carried more pain than tears ever could. Ethan looked around the collapsing cabin. The roof sagged beneath heavy snow, and freezing air poured through every crack. Without another word, he picked up her worn bag. "My cabin's warm." She hesitated. "You don't even know me." "No." "Then why help?" Ethan looked toward the fading sunlight beyond the trees. "Because once, someone helped me." Clara followed him through the snow-covered forest while Ranger happily ran ahead. Neither spoke much during the long walk. As the lights from Ethan's cabin appeared between towering pines, Clara felt something unfamiliar stirring inside her heart. For the first time since losing everything, she wasn't walking toward another goodbye. She was walking toward hope. The warmth inside Ethan's log cabin felt almost unreal after the freezing wilderness. A bright fire crackled inside the stone fireplace, filling the room with golden light, while the scent of pine wood and fresh coffee drifted through the air. Clara stood quietly near the doorway, uncertain whether she truly belonged there. She carefully brushed the snow from her worn dress, afraid of dirtying the clean wooden floor. Ethan noticed her hesitation but said nothing. Instead, he placed another log on the fire, poured a bowl of hot beef stew, and gently slid it across the rough-hewn table. "Eat first," he said in his calm, steady voice. Questions can wait. Clara stared at the steaming bowl for several seconds before tears filled her eyes. She had forgotten what it felt like to be treated with simple kindness. Every meal she'd received since becoming a widow had come with judgment, pity, or demands. This one came with nothing except quiet respect. She whispered a grateful prayer before taking her first bite, and Ethan quietly looked away, giving her the dignity of eating without being watched. Over the next few days, a quiet routine began to form. Before sunrise, Ethan saddled the horses and checked his cattle while Clara swept the cabin, mended torn blankets, baked fresh bread, and organized shelves that had long been neglected. She never acted as though the cabin belonged to her. She simply cared for it as a way of thanking the man who had saved her life. Ethan noticed little changes each evening. His boots were drying neatly beside the fireplace instead of lying forgotten by the door. Fresh wildflowers appeared in a small tin cup on the windowsill. His late wife's old quilt, untouched for years, had been carefully washed and folded with gentle hands. The lonely cabin slowly felt alive again. One snowy afternoon, Ethan found Clara repairing one of his winter coats beside the fire. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Clara smiled softly. "You didn't have to rescue me either." For the first time in years, Ethan found himself smiling back. It was only a small smile, but it felt like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. As winter deepened, Clara slowly shared her story. Her husband had died while hauling supplies through the mountains. After creditors seized everything they owned, she wandered from town to town searching for honest work. Many people promised help but expected something in return. Others simply shut their doors. The abandoned cabin had been her final shelter before giving up hope. Ethan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he quietly said, "This mountain has taken enough from both of us." Clara looked at him with grateful eyes, understanding that those words came from someone who carried scars just as deep as hers. The following week, Ethan rode into the nearby settlement for supplies. A few townsfolk noticed Clara riding beside him in the wagon. Before long, gossip spread through the valley. Some claimed she was after Ethan's ranch. Others insisted the lonely cowboy had lost his senses. When one ranch hand hinted that strangers couldn't be trusted, Ethan calmly answered, "Character isn't measured by where someone comes from. It's measured by how they treat others when nobody's watching." His words silenced every voice around him. That evening, as snowflakes drifted gently outside the cabin windows, Clara stood alone on the porch watching the stars appear above the mountain peaks. Ethan stepped beside her without speaking. After several quiet moments, she whispered, "I thought I had lost my place in this world." Ethan looked across the peaceful valley before answering softly, "Sometimes home isn't the place you were born. Sometimes it's the place where someone chooses not to give up on you." In that silent mountain night, neither realized that the walls around their wounded hearts were beginning to fall, making room for something neither had believed possible again: hope, trust, and perhaps even love. Spring slowly replaced the harsh mountain winter. Snow melted into sparkling streams, wildflowers covered the valley, and the lonely cabin that had once echoed with silence now overflowed with warmth and laughter. Ethan and Clara worked side by side each day, repairing fences, planting a garden, and rebuilding the abandoned cabin into a shelter for weary travelers. The townspeople who had once whispered began to admire the kindness they witnessed with their own eyes. One afternoon, Ethan discovered Clara quietly packing her small cloth bag. "I've stayed long enough," she said softly. "You saved my life. I don't want people saying I took advantage of your kindness." Ethan gently took the bag from her hands and placed it back on the table. "They've been wrong about me for years." He smiled. "I'm not about to let them be wrong about you too." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I have nothing to give you." Ethan stepped closer. "You already have." She looked at him with confusion. "You gave this cabin laughter again. You gave these mountains hope again, and you gave my heart a reason to live." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan reached into his pocket and carefully removed a simple silver ring that had belonged to his mother. "I opened my cabin because you needed shelter," he said quietly, "but somewhere along the way, you opened my heart. With tears streaming down her face, Clara nodded.
Yes.
A few weeks later, the entire valley gathered beneath the tall pine trees as Ethan and Clara were married in a simple frontier ceremony. There was no great wealth or luxury, only smiling neighbors, blooming wildflowers, and two grateful hearts beginning a new life together. The broken cabin where Ethan had first found Clara was transformed into a refuge for lonely travelers, reminding everyone that one act of compassion could change generations. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, Ethan wrapped his arm around Clara while she whispered, "I thought I'd die alone in that broken cabin." He smiled warmly. "Instead, you came home." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable Wild West stories of love, faith, and second chances. Until next time, remember, sometimes the greatest treasure a person finds isn't gold, it's someone willing to open their heart.